Morning Glory America, Evening Grace America. Whenever you're listening to me on whatever platform, I am Hugh Hewitt. I am in the Relief Factor studio out west, and we have a big show today. Dan Crenshaw is coming along after the break. Congressman Crenshaw, of course, on the House Intel Committee, on the House Armed Services Committee. Mary Catherine Ham of Getting Hammered going to be here today. Victor Davis Hanson is back. Now I'm back in the afternoon. Selena Zito. Florida House Speaker Danny Perez making some news. Old friend of the program of mine, and he will be here. And Abe Greenwald, executive editor of Commentary Magazine. Abe, it's worse than that. Greenwald joins me, so a lot ahead. But I want to begin by first setting the table for what I'm about to say. I am not wholly ignorant of the federal personnel system. We have 2 million, roughly, federal civilian workers. Doesn't count the uniformed military. Roughly 2 million. More than 30 years ago, I was the general counsel of the United States Office of Personnel Management. Then I was its deputy director, and that's an advise and consent position, a PAS, Presidential Advise and Senate System consent position. And then I was the acting director after Director Horner left. So I spent 3 years in the belly of the Human Resources Department of the federal government, but it was 30 years ago. A lot has changed, but the basic law, which was the Civil Service Reform Act of 1978, has not changed. But a lot of rules and regulations have changed. So I am not an expert. I am an informed former expert. So I used to be an expert. Now I'm not. And there's a difference. But there's a lot going on with the federal workforce this week and last week. President Trump has issued 3 actions that impact the federal workforce. 4, actually. First of all, he told every federal employee, you got to come back from work, no more remote work. Secondly, he has offered a buyout, an early retirement package to every federal employee. I think it's like 8 months' pay and some benefits. And he did that. Then he fired a number of inspectors general. And then he fired 12 people who prosecute him on Jack Smith's team. Now, the Jack Smith category is of particular interest to me because I'm a lawyer and I was at the Department of Justice before I went to the White House, before I went to OPM. And as a DOJ lawyer, there are some things you know when you do them, you're going in harm's way. You'd better be right. And when you signed on with Jack Smith, I actually believe those lawyers ought to have resigned when Jack Smith went spiraling off into that crazy indictment in the District of Columbia. But I think there's cause there to fire those people, but I don't know if the president can. I want to tell you why. The number of different categories of federal employee, PAS, PA, presidential appointment, Schedule A, Schedule B, Schedule C, and there are other schedules, will make your head spin. And the rules are different for each of them. It's all because of Jimmy Carter. He passed one significant piece of legislation, the Federal Civil Service Reform Act of 1978. And just to demonstrate, Dwayne's mad at me. I used all the paper in the machine because I printed off one rule. It's actually not a rule. It's a notice that under the law and regulations of OPM and the Congress is obliged to be published in the Federal Register every now and then. It's a rule from 2020. Accepted service, consolidated listings of Schedules A, B, and C. A notice of the Personnel Management Office on March 6, 2020. This is from when Trump was last president. Do you see this? This is one notice, all right? One notice. It's scores of pages. I don't think it's 100 pages. Dwayne said, why'd you print off a book? Oh, I wanted to tell people that there is in the Office of the National Coordinator for Health Information Technology an advanced representative advisor whose authorization is DH 190053, dated January 25 of 2001. And then there's a briefing book coordinator and policy advisor. And then if you go back a little bit later, you'll find in the Office of the General Counsel, Office of the Secretary and the Deputy, there's a Director, Office of Support and Mission, Senior Advisor for Strategic Communications, a White House Liaison. These are all PAs in Schedule C. Political appointees in Schedule C. What I'm trying to communicate to you is that people who have opinions on what President Trump has done or hasn't done with regards to either all employees, no more remote work. Here's a buyout offer. Or a few employees, the inspectors general or the 12 lawyers at DOJ, are almost certainly ill-informed, almost certainly lack the necessary predicate. If you want me to talk, for example, about classical music, you'll figure out pretty quickly I don't know anything about classical music. I know a few names: Mahler, Beethoven, Brahms, Bach, Mozart. But you asked me to identify their greatest hits. I can't do that. I can tell you a lot about the Cleveland Browns, the Cleveland Guardians, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Ohio State University Buckeyes, who are the national champions. Depends on where you go. Depends on who you're talking to find out expertise. I taught this week West Virginia versus EPA and Loper Bright Enterprises. So I'm kind of up to speed on those two cases, which are two of 1,000 cases that make up the highest corpus of law in the United States. I know my way around constitutional law. I know my way around politics. I know my way around my sports teams. And I used to know my way around OPM and the Federal Civil Service. But I don't anymore because there's been a lot that's changed. So the right answer about the Department of Justice lawyers and the Inspector Generals is, I don't know. The right answer about ending remote work and offering a buyout is, I think so. I think you can do that, but I don't know. The right answer is almost always, I don't know. I need to research it, and I need to get smart, or I will give you bad information. Now, I don't do that. I give you good information on the Hugh Hewitt Show, and I try and explain to you every time I do what my background is, what my qualifications are, and what I think and when I might not know what I'm talking about. So I'm not really sure about the inspectors general. I think it's a ridiculous office. I know that Senator Grassley loves them. They're too slow. They don't produce reports that are useful. They are molasses speed. And even the very good ones don't move fast enough for the speed of American government and American media. They are probably from a different era. I also know that we need more PAs, political appointees, Schedule Cs, and we need to be able to fire lawyers whenever we want to. Because lawyers are unlike, especially lawyers at the Department of Justice. There are lawyers everywhere. When I was a general counsel at OPM, I had 30-odd lawyers, and they were specialists in things like pensions and benefits and separation from the service and appeals to the Merit Systems Protection Board, whether or not you could move an employee from, Washington, D.C. to Alaska. They were the experts, and they were there, most of them. There was a general counsel, me, PA, political appointment, SES reserved for political appointments. There's the deputy general counsel, political appointee, SES reserved. And that was it. Everyone else was career. And you have to be career because, really, you'll go crazy studying this stuff like the Merit Systems Protection Board, unless you want to make it your business, unless you want to make money off it and represent federal workers who feel they've been wrongfully terminated or wrongfully sent somewhere. All I want you to know is almost everything you've heard about this is not well informed. So just kind of hold fire, folks. Donald Trump is the head of the executive branch. We have three branches of government: Article 1, the Congress; Article 2, the presidency; Article 3, the judiciary. The people who work for Article 1 are not subject to the president ever. The people who work for Article 3, the judiciary, are not subject to the president's authority, unilateral authority, ever. A whole bunch of people who work in Article 2, the executive branch, under the theory of the unitary executive, or any area you want, just read Article 2, they work for the president. Now, we, beginning in the 1800s, 1890s, I think, maybe 1880s, the Pendleton Act was when we finally had a civil service. I think Teddy Roosevelt was on the first Civil Service Commission. Not sure. I think that's the case. But the Pendleton Act was intended to get some of the patronage out of the civil service. It used to be President A wins and he fires everyone who's around. President B comes in, he fires all of President A's people and replaces them. Federal government was small. Now it's 2 million. So here I am to tell you, get your relief factor.